was waiting for that the Miguel contract situation. And I think his contract is not the problem. Well, it is somewhat the problem, but they shed how much money, Chris? How much? What was it?
Well, yeah. So basically, by not signing Candelario and the Castros and Funkhauser and trading away Jimenez, I think they saved about $15 million this year, and then they went and saved about $18 million. So the payroll just on that regard went up about $3 million. Not, and then there are a couple other guys who got raises in arbitration. But no, I mean that's they might give you that excuse,
Yeah.
but they're $100 million below the competitive tax threshold. Like they could spend a lot of money and not have to worry about it. They're choosing not to for either long-term planning purposes or because Chris Ilitch doesn't want to have a higher payroll, which is it's his prerogative, but it's going to be really hard for the Tigers to compete and for fans to care when you're not going to spend any money. And I don't think Cabrera's contract has much to do with that at all. I mean, it's gone after next year. You invest when you can, and this is Yoop's thing, right? You sign good players when they're available, and worry about the future later.
Yes, exactly. If you want to win, if they want to keep this rebuild going and call it that, that's the choice they're going to have to make. But yes, Miguel Cabrera's contract has not prevented them from doing anything this offseason. That is a canard. It's just not true. I refuse to believe it. It's a big contract, sure, but where they stand in payroll, they could have legitimately competed for almost any free agent on the market this year. They chose not to do it. It takes two to tango. We know that. They may not have wanted to come to Detroit, but if you're not trying, you're never going to get it.
Connor, if I could ask you a question. We kind of had a debate on last week's show or 2 weeks ago about like what the Tigers are doing and do we agree with them not spending money? Where do you kind of stand on that? Are you happy with the way the lack of moves? Do you think they're smart in what they're doing? How do you kind of look at that?
So I kind of look at it as half and half. I mean, obviously you could go get some big players, some big bats, but does that really solve the problem? I mean, I think the problem that really got us here to this point is spending money on big contracts like Upton, Zimmerman. And I think you definitely need your stars on your teams. But again, I think we still need to see what we have. I think Harris wants to see what do we have with our new coaching staff? What do we have with our new front office? I mean, there's so many more resources that we're giving players now that I think it's going to be somewhat of a competitive advantage. But, I don't think a lot of, players in free agency realize that yet. So I think, if we could show a lot of improvement, signs of development, maybe like a 2010 year where you're just 81 and 81 and, you have some studs like Austin Jackson, Brennan Bosch, like some of these up and coming players coming up proving, hey, we can perform here. So I think, I would say, of course, who doesn't want to spend money on the big free agents, but it doesn't really solve anything in the long term. And I think there's some interesting prospects on the way that can definitely help out this team going forward.
Let's say they went out and signed a really good shortstop from this year's class. Let's say they got named Xander Bogaerts, just for fun. And we're waiting on these prospects. How does signing Xander Bogaerts affect the fact that we're waiting on these prospects to see what they are? What I don't understand what the difference is. You know what I'm saying? Because you have a player like Xander Bogaerts in place. These prospects are going to be progressing or not progressing, no matter if he's there or not. And if they're good enough, they'll find a place for them to play. Because what I try to get at is this. Everybody's saying next year's free agent class stinks, right? So if some of these prospects have moved forward and look like ball players, and now you say, well, now we want to go out and sign some free agents to pair with them. Well, next year's class stinks by everybody's estimation. This year you had players there and you had money to spend, and they chose not to. So that's, I guess, I know it sounds kind of dickish half the time when I talk like that, but I don't understand the idea of sitting out when competing for talent.
This is the point where if you're going to sign somebody, then sign the big ticket guys who are going to be contributing in 4 or 5 years. I don't see the point of signing a 1-year stopgap if you do care about these prospects at all, because then you really are just kind of taking playing time from the guys that you want to find out about eventually. If you don't
Agreed.
believe in them, then replace them. But if you believe in them, then give them time. Otherwise, sign the big ticket guys and worry about what to do with their prospects later.